That's close enough. Yeah. There you go. Listen, it's totally fine. You've known each other for a while. You're perfectly fine. Right. I've heard all variations. Right. And I should have asked for a theme song, like there's the ABBA song Fernando. Like whenever I tell my name, everybody says, "Oh, can I hear the drums?" Yes, I can hear the drums.
Brian, I hear you're muted on Twitch. Now you can just say a bunch of stuff and I'm fantastic. I'm glad you all can hear me.
Yeah.
People hear me. Like I'm confused.
Yeah, I think Brian Break's the only one that they can't hear.
Yeah, no, it's the new overlay, so everyone should be able to hear me now.
That's because you're in space.
Yes, I'm in space.
Now what's that commercial? Want to get away?
Yeah, my ass is sweating now, and it's not just because of the temperature in the room. Hey, Age of Music, thank you. Yeah, appreciate y'all. All right, so I'm gonna have to cut this out in pre-production. So, hi everybody, it's Brian. It's Sunday. It's BreakSec. We have Fernando Montenegro here. I got it right, more right this time, I think, because I said it wrong the first time. Yeah, take two. Fuck it, we'll do it live. Fuck it. Being all, whatever.
We're doing fine.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool. So yeah, we're here. It's Sunday. One of the things that we've been wanting to do with at least this year's show is to demystify things, if you will. We had our good friend Stuart, who's a recruiter at Hampton North, kind of talking about the hiring process, what goes into hiring, how people interact with the hiring process, how companies work with recruiters, and one of the ones that, and to be fair, this one is a long time in coming. This one's a long time in coming. I think the first time we approached Fernando about maybe coming on the show was back when we were an audio podcast during pre-COVID at DerbyCon. And yeah, it was a long time ago, probably 2017, 2018. I think it was one of those. I think Leonard Koopman was doing a talk, and I think we were talking about it post-discussion about that. So that's how long ago that was. About having him come on to talk about analyst stuff and what it means to be an analyst and how the analyst process works. Because there's, I would say, a running joke in the industry about how maybe some of that works. And what I'd love to do is talk with Fernando and we'll help to demystify some of that. So Fernando, again, another introduction here, but thank you for coming on. We hope this is a positive experience for everybody, including yourself. And first, I want to start off with tell me a little bit about yourself, and we'll get started here.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Just hanging out with the three of you is positive already, right? Perfect, right? And I've my background is that I've been around the industry for a while. The gray hair comes from I think I first started in cybersecurity before it was called cybersecurity. We're talking 1990. I think my first security specific stuff was back in uni, 1992 perhaps. And I've been background computer science. I'm originally from Brazil. my wife and I moved to Canada back in 2000. So we live just outside Toronto now, and family grew up here. I've I've uh, I've been in Canada since then, but you get to travel and whatnot. So I've been to Brazil back a few times. In terms of background, for many years I was in professional services, in always in cybersecurity in one shape or form, right? I was doing professional services as a consultant. I remember making the joke at the time that my son was born that I was switching from socks consulting to diaper consulting, right?
Nice.
And so a while back, and that did consulting, professional services for many years. Then at some point I switched over to sales engineering, right? And we can talk more about that. There's an element of that to the analyst role. And then about 7 years ago, I was invited to consider an analyst role, and I looked at this. I'll take it, and I can go into more details about how I got there. But the it involves being opinionated online and writing blog posts, and people saying you're already kind of an analyst, so why don't you start doing the role, kind of thing, right? And so that was that about 7 years ago. I was hired into 451 Research at the time, working under Scott Crawford, who is a phenomenal gentleman and amazing to work with. About 2.5 years ago, I moved over from 451 Research, which was then owned by S&P Global, to Omdia, which is where I am now. Omdia is part of Informa. And by the way, as we're chatting here, I work for Omdia, but I'm here to talk about analysts as an individual. I'm not representing the company, kind of thing, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the start. Professional services, sales engineering, analyst, right? But there's multiple paths to becoming an analyst. So we can talk about that if you want.
So, okay, a lot of people, where they were during the Kennedy assassination, 9/11. Yep. What were you doing when Conficker hit?
I honestly don't remember. I am
sorry. You don't remember? Oh, okay.
I do not remember. I do remember when Code Red hit, because I was busy arguing with the company shall remain nameless. With the telecom provider in Canada about why are you shutting this stuff? Why are you shutting us down when we're reporting these kinds of incidents coming from you, kind of thing. I remember that. And as for 9/11, I remember very clearly. I was in my apartment in Toronto, and yeah, okay, let's not go there. But yeah, it was. It's been a while. Sorry.
It's all right. It's all good. I can't remember where I was when Conficker happened either. I was probably not even in security at that time. I was probably still.
When was Conficker? Give me a year. I don't remember.
2008, I think.
2008.
I don't know when it came out, but I definitely know when I experienced it first.
Yeah, November 2008.
Okay.
Yeah. November 2008. Where was I? November 2008.
That was a big one.
I was doing professional services, like network security stuff at the time, right?
Yep.
Implementing. We were doing lots of implementations of Cisco kit back when I was with Hewlett Packard at the time, and we used to do a lot of work around Cisco gear. We were a big Cisco partner back then.
Yep. MSO 8067. For those of you who remember that, that might jog some memories. MSO 8067. Yep. Found in Windows 2000 XP, Vista 2003 Server, 2008 Server, and 2008 R2.
What's fun is vendors were shipping things to us with Conficker on it. That's how I found out about it first.
Wow.
That was super.
Well, that's
kind of
long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what was worse, Conficker or Shell Shock.
Probably Conficker in terms of like how widespread it was.
Well, see, Shell Shock had been a O-Day for 8 years? So it was there for a long time and no one knew about it, right?
Oh.
And so they started going back and trying to figure out if anybody
Was hit, right?
knew about it beforehand, like gave little hints. So I think on what's that news group? It was what was that news group we used to go to,
Like
Brian?
Usenet kind of thing?
No, it was
Hacker
where
News?
hackers would no, they'd post vulnerabilities.
Oh,
Facebook?
Open,
Oh,
no. I
Open
forget the
Wall.
name.
Open Wall.
No, but they went back and they found a post from like 6 years before where
Oh.
somebody, if I can remember correctly, somebody posted something that said, "Hey, there's this vulnerability, blah blah," and they kind of hinted at it, but they didn't post it.
I
And
see.
then, of course, it didn't hit for many years.
Right.
And I want to say the name. It was full disclosure. I
Oh,
want to
hey,
say
full
the
disc.
name
Yeah.
was
An
Julian
oldie but a goodie.
Assange.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one. That was a good one. That was Bash, though. I think both had their merits. I think that was probably the Linux version of that, and yeah, it was very, very interesting. Couple of vulnerabilities that I know both of us had to deal with it. Well, at least Shell Shock and Heartbleed. Of course, you and I dealt with Heartbleed at the joint.
Yeah.
So, so to it's good to reminisce about these things because I think we've all come very far in our careers and everything. And Fernando, so I think the reason we wanted to have you on was we wanted to demystify what a security analyst is and does, because there's of course there's a couple of big ones out there where people talk about, they're in this specific area of a graph, or they enjoy this kind of thing, and there's other ways of measuring how well or how not well your competitors and you are doing. And so I think what I want to do is start at the beginning, because as I like to say, it's a very good place to start. So I asked, at a generic level, what motivates an organization to want to engage with analysts in the first place? I'd like to speak to the overall process at a high level. Whether it be is it a product launch? Is it understanding competition landscape? Are they trying to figure out where they're good at something and not good at others? I mean, what motivates them to want to engage with a security industry analyst?
So let's start at the beginning. And by the way, when I talk way too much, so I go stream of consciousness. So interrupt me if at any point. But let me walk you through a couple of things before we get started.
Okay.
You mentioned security analysts, and then you mentioned security industry analysts, right? To be very clear, like my role is as an industry analyst covering cybersecurity. Now, I have a cybersecurity background. I've been around for a while, but that's the first point. Like, I mean, the role that I do, and depending on how you count, there's somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 industry analysts in the world in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, so that's what I want to do. Let me talk about the role a little bit, and we'll cover the question you asked. But depending how you look, there's somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 industry analysts in the world, employed at everything from very, very large firms we all know and love, and Gartner, Forrester, IDC, Omdia, 451 Research, Frost and Sullivan, Kuppinger. Like there's hundreds of firms, right? Now, there are a few who focus more, like we're talking cybersecurity, of course, but you should know that 10,000 analysts, 8,000 analysts covering everything in different markets, right? And some of the larger firms, they cover multiple sectors. At Omdia, we have around 300, 400 analysts, I don't know, covering everything from how many processors are shipped from the large manufacturers to stuff on service providers, to stuff on media and entertainment, and so on and so forth. So when you hear on the news people talking about industry trends, it's usually coming from an industry analyst in some way, shape, or form, right? And the thing about I didn't talk about, we'll talk about where it came from and whatnot. My background's computer science, but I think that to understand this business, it's important to understand economics, right? And what I mean here is that what analysts do, fundamentally, what industry analysts do, is that they are information brokers, right? Industry analysts, they will talk to, I'm going to simplify it a little bit, but there are, imagine 3 or 4 major groups. On one group, you have buyers, right? So we will talk to buyers. On the other group, we will have sellers, right? We will talk to sellers. The third group might be investors. We will talk to investors, right? Fourth group could be like an other, right? It could be media, it could be government, whatever, right? And the best way to think about analysts are as information brokers between these groups, right? So what we'll do on a regular role, on a regular day, is that we will talk to end user organizations about the kinds of challenges they are having and so on and so forth. We will talk to vendors who will tell us the greatest things since sliced bread and so on and so forth. And we will ask them questions and so on. We will talk to investors who are telling us, oh my goodness, we're investing into this brand new startup. You guys should talk to them and so on and so forth, right? And we'll talk to others as well. And I say that that this has to be based in economics because there's 2 things about economics that I think are particularly relevant here. One is the notion of information asymmetry, right? I'm not sure if the audience is familiar. And again, my background is computer science, not economics, so I apologize to the economists in the audience if I butcher this. Information asymmetry is this characteristic of an economic transaction where one of the 2 parties on that transaction, they know more or less about the good that's being sold, right? You've heard the term lemons to refer to used cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the prototypical example on information asymmetry. That was a paper called The Market for Lemons, where back in the 1970, I think, George Akerlof, he won the Nobel Prize for economics. Caveat, the Nobel Prize for economics is not an actual Nobel, but it's Nobel. Anyway, never mind. But it's this notion of what happens in the market when the buyer and the seller don't quite understand, they don't agree on the quality of something, right? And you can have, I'm not going to spend an hour talking about information asymmetry, but the point I want to make is that the way that you resolve information asymmetry, there were a couple of other economics researchers that got us to this, Spencer and Stiglitz, was the idea of the party that knows more about something, they can signal quality, right? So, for example, if you're applying for a job and you want to show that you have some level of security expertise, what do? Well, that's where their certifications come in, right? Oh, I'm certified this, I'm certified that, and we can debate the merits of the certification, but you have to understand certifications from an information asymmetry perspective. They are a signal, right? The other way is think about the party that doesn't have the information and wants to get that information. And the mechanism there is called screening, right? I'm going to have a screening process that is designed in such a way that through that process, the quality will be revealed. And if we're going to talk about hiring again, I'm going to have, again, I'm not debating the whether it's the completely correct or not, but in a hiring process, somebody might say, oh, you need to be certified in whatever, right? Like we are looking for people with certification. So that's the screening process. So you have these 2 sides of the coin. You have the signaling. Hey, I want to show the quality of what I am doing. Here is my quality of what I'm doing. And you have the screening. I don't know enough, so I'm going to ask for I'm going to screen it in some way, shape, or form. So that's point number 1. And point number 2 is really the notion of opportunity cost, right? What it is that you're spending time You're spending time doing something, what it is that you're not doing when you're spending time doing that. If you think about those two things, so why, again, I meander, why industry analysts? Well, because in one way, we help organizations with providing them the information that they need, that they would spend time themselves getting, right? So what this means is, in the context of an opportunity cost, you can go to your every enterprise that I speak with. Everyone's always pressed for resources, right? Your team, we all know the ratio. I'm not sure if the ratio is exactly that. The 100 developers, 10 ops people, 1 security person, right? We talk about that, right?
Right.
So we all know security people are swamped, right? Do you want to go to your chief security architect and say, hey, go spend 6 months picking out which one of the 100, probably around 100 endpoint security vendors we're going to pick for our company, right? You don't want to. Where do they start, right? So part of the value of analysts is to provide this kind of starting point for that conversation, right? It's, hey, listen, as analysts, we are talking to those endpoint security vendors, right? As analysts, we kind of understand a little bit what you may need from that market. We are going to write a report. We're going to show that information to you as an end user organization, right? Here's our view of that endpoint security market, right? Is that what you're going to use to buy? You're going to read the report. You're going to look at someone's position on a geographic or on a shape or rounds, squares, triangles, whatever, right? Are you going to look into that visual representation and say, oh, okay, no, this position, I want that vendor? No, you're not going to do that, right? Or you shouldn't do that. But what you can do is, oh, look, out of these vendors, under those criteria, right, this particular analyst firm ranked them this way. That's information that you didn't have before. If that the information you need to make your decision, well, it's a step there. If I was in your shoes reading that report, I would say, oh, okay, I'm going to read that report. I'm not just going to look at the chart. I'm going to read the report because the analyst will say, okay, these are the good things about this vendor. These are the bad things about this vendor, and so on and so forth. You're going to look at that and say, you know what? Based on this, we're going to pick 3 or 5 that we're going to go to POC with, right? It's much better use of your time than having you filter through 100 endpoint security vendors, right? So that is a very typical motion, right? Now, one of the things I want to that's not immediately clear is that, remember I mentioned there's like 700 like analyst firms, right? And I mentioned some of the large ones. I stopped the conversation. I should have mentioned it goes down all the way to individual analysts working freelance, right? It's there's a power law distribution in terms of size of firms. A large number, not all of those firms serve the same audiences, right? Even in in whatever market, there are analyst firms who have who are serving more what we call the buy side. Their focus is on serving end user questions. Their focus is more on serving buyers. There are firms who are more, no, our business is to help serve vendors, like to help vendors better reach their buyers. And then there are firms who do a little bit of both, right? So it's important. If I have a few things for the audience to keep in mind, it's this, that not every analyst firms are different, right? It's not everybody is after the same market. Not everybody behaves the same way, right? Now, you asked about what motivates an organization to engage with an analyst, right? There are the typical consulting answer. It depends, right? If you are a buyer, you may want to engage with an analyst because the analyst knows the vendor market well enough to guide you in making decisions about that vendor market, or the analyst knows enough about the practices that you should be doing. They talk to other buyers and they say, oh, look, here are the best practices on how to spin up a SIM program, right? Or next gen SIM or XDR or like let's so you may get from that analyst, you may get guidance, right? That's one thing. The other thing, so if you are a vendor, on the other hand, you may want to engage with analysts, to understand what the buyer needs are, right? Hey, I'm in product management, and we have this wonderful idea about making the something on the product. Does this resonate with buyers? Well, you engage with analysts to figure that out, right? And the analyst will either say, oh, look, we have this kind of information already, or, oh, we'll do a custom consult project with you to figure out, to find this out, right? So that's on the buyer side. And then from the investor side, the interest with engaging with the analyst is, okay, you analysts, you know buyers, you know vendors, what are the hot trends that are going on right now that we should be investing in, or give us or you are analysts. I have this company in my portfolio here that they claim that they are solving they are solving the halting problem, right? Does this hold water, right? What do you guys think about, guys and gals? There's men and women analysts. It's one of those industries where we still have too many men, but we are seeing more women as analysts, which is awesome, right? So we are seeing more diversity, which is great. But so long-winded answer to your question is, people will engage with analysts for different reasons, right? Fundamentally, it's decision support, right? What am I trying to, I'm trying to get some information to do something. Does this help?
So resellers do a little bit of this too. Where do they?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Sorry, I got excited. I would argue that sometimes resellers play that role as well, right? Hey, listen, I have 500 partner companies that I resell. I can make inferred guesses. I can make opinions about them, right? So absolutely yes. And another entity. So remember how I said that there are buyer-centric and vendor-centric. Sometimes some of the buyer-centric analyst work is done by the system integrators, again, I'm not endorsing anybody, but by the Deloittes and the PwCs of the world, because you can go to one of those analysts and say, what do you recommend we do, right? It's perfectly valid. So yes, you're absolutely right. A reseller might do that as well. As a matter of fact, a lot of people that I know quite a few people at resellers who basically could do analyst work. I mean, they do it just in the context of their reseller.
Nice.
Sorry, I talk a mile a minute. So
no, it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff
okay
to think about, because there's you can come at it from every angle almost, right? I mean, you talked about them being like information brokers, and now like I think about it like in my everyday work, also like the preconceived notions I've always had of like industry analysts, right? And then you start to get into different areas of work, you're like, oh, I can actually see like all of this is important in different areas, because you can outsource. That's so much work, right? All of that work that industry analyst does, like that's why there's entire companies that do it. It is so much research and time and effort that goes into that work. There's no way every company can do that kind of stuff themselves.
Absolutely. So let me cover one more thing, right? Which is, how do you engage with an analyst? I think that's one of the questions. And I want to say, we can go back to your question, but I want to comment it in that typically the way that an organization will engage with an analyst is that the analyst. Sorry, this is my Duolingo timer. I have to make sure I don't get I don't fall off the ratings, right? But one of the things is that analysts, we also want to work, we want the economies of scale, right? So if I'm going to take 5 calls about what are the most important features on market X, whatever, the way that we do it is that we'll write a report and we'll publish that report on our portal, right? So the business of analysts is about, fundamentally, we will write a report, and then there's multiple types of reports we can write, right? We'll write that report, we post it on our portal for our subscribers, right? And then our subscribers will engage with that content. And then if they have questions about that content, they can do what's called an inquiry, right? So they can reach out and say, hey, listen, Fernando, I read your report. I wrote one on cloud firewalls, for example. I read your report on cloud firewalls, and I have a few questions. Great. As part of your subscription to the service, you have so many hours a year of inquiry time that you can use to call up and talk to the analyst, right? So the way that someone will engage with us, they'll call us up and say, hey, I want to ask you about this and this and this, and we'll talk for about half hour, right? Usually inquiries are about half hour on the topics of interest, right? So that's one. So a very, very common way is someone reads the research as subscription, and they may want to ask follow-up questions, right? The other thing that happens is that sometimes people will want to take that research, and when I say people, I mean usually vendors. They read the same research, and they may say, oh, look, we like that research because it aligns with our message, or we like that research because it's a comparative research and we show up well, right? Okay, we're going to buy a reprint of that report, and we're going to make it available to we're going to make it available on the website behind a reg wall, a registration wall, right? So they will buy from the analyst firm, they will buy the reprint rights for that report for a period of time, right? And then, okay, now the individual analyst has zero input on that reprint process. I wrote my report. My report is what it is. Whether somebody wants to buy it if I say that I like a vendor's logo, if they want to reprint because Fernando liked our logo, that's on them. That's not on me. So there's the subscription, right? There's the reprints that vendors can get, and then analysts we can help. Again, it's more on the vendor side, but we can help with thought leadership content. We may write a blog post for you about a particular trend, or we may collaborate on research. Hey, we'll do the research and then commission by whatever, right? So there is that side of those are the 3 major areas, right? So you have the syndicated subscription type work, you have the reprints that sometimes get done, and you have the consult work. Oh, the other one is like sometimes, okay, we'll pay you to come on our webinar to talk about the trends that you are doing, or to talk about us as a vendor, right? So, not talk about us as a vendor, to talk about your research, and then on our webinar, we'll have our VP of marketing or our evangelist or whatever talking about us. So that's how analysts kind of interact with the different type of organizations. And I'll shut up now because I've gone way too long as usual. Sorry. No, and my video sometimes keeps going in and out. This is a bad thing. I'll give me 1 second. Okay. I don't know what it is with the Logitech drivers. They usually lose focus. Turn it off.
Oh,
turn
mine
it on
too.
again.
Oh yeah, mine too. I had a follow-up question on the one thing you said about how with a subscription, somebody can call an analyst and talk about and ask questions. What because you said they have so many hours associated with their subscription usually, how
Yep.
can, I'm assuming that some people will call and just not have a plan when when they call. What is something that can make them someone successful other than definitely having enough questions for you to answer and talk about?
I think so. So there's the thing about inquiries is that they are, you have a half hour with the analyst to, hopefully, if you've done your job, you've said, okay, I want to talk about this so that the analyst can come prepared. You don't want to waste time. You don't want me to waste time. I have a half hour for that call. You don't want me to waste time searching on our portal about stuff that right. Sorry, it's your time. It's like when you go to an attorney, right?
Right.
No, we don't do it in 6-minute increments, but but the way to prepare for an inquiry call is make sure you've read the research, make sure you're clear about the questions you want to ask, right? And then be professional, be respectful. If you don't agree, like we'll debate the point, but it's not about it's time with a fellow professional debating a topic, right? Do you want to make it a half hour discussing, no, I think that Linux is better than Windows or vice versa, right? It's your time, right?
Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
does
that's
that
great.
help? Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of brings me into the one of the questions we had, and it was I'm glad we were able to ask that question. But do companies think about what do they have when they reach out to you? Are they expecting some things, and you're like, oh, we don't do that, or is it a hey, we're looking for that excellent report, and you're like, well, it remains to be seen whether or not that's going to be excellent or not. So, I mean, what are some of the misconceptions that companies have when they reach out to you about what they expect, or what you can give them?
That's a very, very good question. Thank you for asking. So let's set the stage here. When you're the framing of your question is about us being reached out to by vendors, right? Hey, listen, I want to engage with the analyst and so on. Point number one thing I didn't talk about is, like, remember I said that we talk to analysts, we talk to buyers, we talk to vendors and so on. When we talk to vendors, there's two ways that we can talk to vendors. We can talk, I'm simplifying a bit, but we can talk to, if the vendor is a subscriber to our service, they will have an inquiry just like anybody else. Hey, I want to, I'm a subscriber to your service. I want to talk to you about X, right? Perfectly fine. The other thing is that the vendors can offer a briefing, right? It's, listen, I want to talk to you as an analyst because I want to tell you about this wonderful thing that we're doing. We're solving XDR, we're solving ASPM, or we're solving whatever, right? And the analysts, when they have complete, total, absolute discretion in who they speak with, right? Point number one. And analysts will take these briefings completely independent of any commercial relationship that may exist, right? If I look at my sheet for the briefings I take, right, I don't know which one of those vendors are subscribers to our service or not. I only know that these vendors, like, I have the option of not taking the call, right? Because it might be it's my research. So I should have mentioned this. My analysts have specific coverage areas, right? Within Omdia, we have 12 analysts on the cybersecurity team. And between the 12 of us, we split 175 different subcategories of markets and so on and so forth. Me personally, I'm doing a lot. I cover network security, content security, endpoint security, application security, cloud security, and DDoS prevention, right? The joke I like to make with my manager is, if we could have 5 extra people working for me, I could keep them 100% busy. There's no time, right? So as analysts, I'm particular about, okay, do I want to take a briefing from a vendor on a particular topic? Does it align with my research? Remember that syndicated research I talked about before? I have a research agenda, right? We define a research agenda. For your audience, for my current research agenda for Q3 24, I am writing our trends to watch report for 2025. So that should be out in by mid-September timeframe. And then my Q4 research is me personally, I'm working on application-centric DDoS prevention as a topic. I'm also working on software supply chain security, right? So between now and the end of the year, unless it's something very specific, I'm going to focus my vendor interactions on software supply chain security, DDoS prevention. Now, one of the areas that I cover as well, like within network and content, is SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, right? So I like SASE. I'll gladly take briefings on SASE, right? But that's my preference, right? And again, taking the briefing is completely up to me as an analyst. What happens on a briefing? Well, a briefing might be a half hour, it might be an hour. You can figure out that because I don't shut up, my briefings usually, I prefer to do them 1 hour because we can talk and so on. But during a briefing, a vendor will either tell us, oh, we are coming to you with this wonderful new thing, or I will have told them ahead of time, listen, you're a new vendor, I haven't spoken to you yet, here are the kind of things I want to know about you, right? So I'll sit down, I'll take a briefing, we'll talk for an hour, usually an hour, right? After that briefing, thank you very much, right? That's wonderful, that's great. I will take that information and I may choose whether I write a report on that vendor or not. It's entirely up to me. Oh, great, one more vendor saying that whatever is the greatest new, like, with all due respect, anybody talking about like hack path analysis as a new thing in 2024? No. Back in 22, sure. 24, nah, not so much, right? So, okay, I'm not going to take a briefing. I may take a briefing. I'll spend an hour of my time listening to that. I may write a report. I may not. If I don't write a report, I'll still keep the vendor information for my own understanding of the market, right? That vendor information may eventually, that vendor name may eventually find themselves into a more generic report, but that's it, right? Let's say that I do want to write a report about that vendor. Oh, look, I'm going to write a profile on vendor X. As two things happen. First of all, we always do peer reviews, right? So I'll write a report, but somebody else in my team will peer review it. And we'll share with the vendor for fact checking before, right? Because during the briefing, they may have said things that they really didn't. Oh, sorry, we shared that. It's sensitive information. We don't. Fine. I'll share a report for fact checking. It's funny, like I do it often enough that I have an Outlook signature with the exact text of that fact checking email, where I say this is a fact checking report, right? Please don't add your messaging as edits to the text. I'm not going to use the tagline that you use on your external marketing copy. I'm not going to include it, right? And by the way, be very careful. Like, we have very strict editorial lines about not endorsing vendors. So please don't add adjectives that you are the unique, the greatest, the best, the only, whatever, right? It'll be your effort to add the adjective and my effort to remove it, right? So what's the point? Right?
Award-winning, world's best.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, right? And then we can have a conversation on best of breed in a second. But where I'm going with this is that there are reports, these kinds of reports about vendors, they're not commissioned. Like, if you are a vendor of a particular market and you want to come to us and say, I want you guys to write a profile about us, a reputable analyst firm will not do that, because those reports they're not for commission. The type of reports that you can commission is, oh, look, there's this area of research that we want to work on. can you guys work with us on this area? And then it'll be our independent research in collaboration with the vendor, right? It'll have a commission buy and so on and so forth there, but it will not be a like a syndicated report. Sorry, like I said, I go down rat holes. Does this help?
So is the vendor paying for you to analyze their tool?
Nope. So the vendor does. The vendors will do a briefing, right? They are not paying us. Like we're not taking a briefing under payment. No.
Okay.
No. I'll take a if the vendor is relevant to my coverage and I have the time and it aligns with my research, I could not care less what the commercial status of the relationship is. Right? Oh, it's a vendor that they've purchased $5 million of services from you before. No, if it doesn't match, it doesn't match. Right? Does that answer your question? Sorry.
A little bit. Okay.
Right.
So for the briefings, they don't pay. But you said the vendor wanted you to do something. What was that thing?
Well, a vendor will work. A vendor will brief an analyst, right? Hoping that the analyst will write about them, right? But the analyst may take the briefing and say, "Thank you very much. This was really interesting, but it's not something I'm going to write about," right?
Okay, so
does that,
you mentioned before behavioral economics. How does bias get introduced in some ways, or does it? Or do you teach the analyst to look for those things?
Sorry, say that again?
Or do you teach the analyst to look for bias or influence in that manner?
So, great question. A couple of things. First of all, I mentioned there's a peer review process, right? So every report is peer reviewed.
Okay.
Point number one. Point number two is that the analysts, they have their independent opinions of a vendor, plain and simple. And where bias comes in, individually, anyone can be biased about something. Hey, look, I really like a particular company. I think that what they are doing is good, right? I'll have that. Can I substantiate that opinion? That's the other thing. Like when we're writing about something, we're substantiating it, right? Where bias, it's a really interesting thing where bias comes in, or where influence comes in that the vendors who know how to work with analysts, and I'll get with that, and I'll get what that means in a second. They know that they are not trying to buy the analyst. You can't buy my opinion. You can buy my time, and you can argue your opinion with me, right? Mm-hmm. If I have, my opinion will be what it will be as an opinion, right? It might agree with you, it might not, but we can have the conversation. And what happens over time is, if you are a particularly influential analyst in a particular sector, right? You have your opinion about how things happen. If you as a vendor may listen to that opinion and say, you know what? We are going over time to incorporate into our product the things that the analyst thinks are important, right? And then the analyst is going to think, oh, wonderful, you've implemented, I like you because you're doing exactly what I think is right.
Yeah.
So it's more of a, do you listen to the analyst for what is happening on them, and if you
what's important to them?
Yeah, what's important to the analyst. So it goes back to the point of, you go on an inquiry call and you might ask, oh, look, in market X, what do you think is important? And you listen to that. And when I say you, like you're the product management person from the vendor side, you're talking to the analyst, you listen to that, and you might, yeah, you know what? they are right about this, they're not right about that, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it that way. That's information you didn't have before that you do have now. So you can buy the analyst attention, but you can't buy the analyst opinion. Does that help?
Yes, but then if you buy the analyst's opinion more than other vendors, you have that not only you're providing them with a paycheck, but there's also recency bias as well, because you're constantly having those conversations with the analyst, right?
And then the couple of things. As the analyst engages, no matter how much you talk to the analyst, you're not the only person talking to, you're not the only vendor talking to the analyst. The analyst is talking to multiple vendors in the sector, right? Is there a recency bias possibility? Absolutely, right? On anything that we do, we are human, right? But the idea is, I think we are approaching we are approaching the comparative research part of the conversation. I'll get to that in just one second, right? Talk to you about a little bit about comparative research. And what I was just talking about general reports and briefings and so on. When we engage, so I talked about the research agenda and told you about what I'm working on and so on. We will define within that research agenda where we are going to write comparative research, right? And again, not an endorsement or a knockoff about anything. Gartner has their quadrant, Forrester has their wave, IDC has their MarketScape. Omdia, we have our universe. Like different vendors will have, some vendors will have radars, some vendors will have whatever, right? The general process for a reputable firm is to have a defined ahead of time what are the criteria that we're going to use for inviting vendors to a particular comparative research, reaching out to those vendors saying, look, we're going to do comparative research on topic X in January. Do you want to participate? Here are the criteria. Do you want to participate? Yes or no, right? The involvement that the vendor will have is answering questions about that research. So what will happen is then the analyst will create, independent of the vendors that are participating, a relatively large questionnaire, and we know how we all love questionnaires in security, right? It will create a very large questionnaire that gets sent to vendors. It'll ask for, okay, give me references of clients, give me, you will give me 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 different briefings, right, where we can dive into the product and so on and so forth. And the analyst will do that with the vendors that are part of that comparative research project. And at the end of that process, they will be scoring vendors on that rubric. And that rubric will yield, hey, look, vendor X, or that rubric will cover the dimensions that are important for that research. Usually, they include some level of technical capability and some level of business involvement. Again, different firms will have different criteria. They will create that research. They'll put the vendors in wherever they need to be in the two-dimensional space there. They'll write the research. They'll do the fact checking with the vendor, and that research gets published, and that's it. I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I went down rat holes again, but the general point is that the process of creating comparative research has very serious methodologies to remove this kind of bias. So within analyst firms, that kind of comparative research is treated, again, under a very strict methodology with strict peer reviews and so on, and different steps to, hey, listen, we are these questions fair? Are you favoring, like, it'll be reviewed before it gets scored. And again, we can, vendors will have an opportunity to say, look, oh, we don't agree with this. Fine, there's a process, right? And then again, from a process perspective, if they are not happy, they can engage with the analyst. They can escalate it. They can engage with the ombudsman for the firm. But at the end of the day, the analyst firm has an opinion about something.
Yeah.
If the you know, go ahead.
Yeah. So you said, one of the questions we had on our list here was, what happens if the company's not happy with the results of those things? My thought was maybe the criteria was set in such a way so that they didn't understand what you were going to be looking at. I was just trying to think of it like when you go through the engagement process with them, it's very much like scoping a pen test, I would imagine, where you're like, we're going to compare you based on these things, and they may not be the same these things every time. I'd imagine there's some scoping effort. It's like, we're going to look at this but not this, or and part of the output from this I was trying to figure out was a lot of times we see salespeople, or full disclosure, when we have sponsors come on, they're like, oh, we're on the Forrester Wave, and I'm like, oh, okay, great. What does that tell me? Okay, you've managed to have a paper written about God knows what, and you've got a result, and here's a paper, but I haven't gotten the paper, so I don't know. Just because I'm on the Forrester Wave, does that make you good or bad or indifferent or whatever?
No.
So,
okay. So let me help you here. Not again endorsing or criticizing any particular analyst firm. The Forrester Wave is a comparative report. You should understand that what the vendor did to get onto the Forrester Wave was to agree to participate in the research and to spend the resources to participate in the research. That research is not commissioned, right? The comparative research is not commissioned, right? So what ends up happening is, look, we participated in that comparative research, and the vendor and the analyst, by whatever criteria they used, they liked us, right? Or we scored well on that. Okay, remember the economics I talked about before, the screening and the signaling? As a signaling mechanism, you are going to buy the reprint rights for that research, and you're going to plaster it to the world. Hey, look, a reputable analyst firm on a thorough comparative exercise with other vendors in the space against this specific set of criteria, they found us credible, right? That is a signaling mechanism from an economics perspective. From a screening mechanism, you might work at an end user organization, and you don't have time to pick out of the 100 vendors. You might say, you know what? We want the vendor to be on a wave or a quadrant or a universe or whatever. We want, as a screening mechanism, we are only going to trust a vendor who sits on one of those, right?
Right.
So the very important point is that the comparative research is not commissioned, right? You may commission the analyst to show up on your webinar to talk about the research. You may commission the analyst to create a thought leadership piece about a particular area, but the comparative research is not commissioned.
Okay. So when a company comes to you, and I'm thinking of this from a vendor point of view, so we've got this product, or we want to know if a product is going to be, worthy of being launched in this area, and we've identified 5 competitors. Maybe you can help us, figure out if there's other competitors that are more of a niche area or something like that. Is it like scoping a pen test? Do you have like certain criteria that you're always looking for? Is there a standardized criteria? And if this is secret sauce or anything, please let me know. But if there's, do you have a specific criteria that you go, okay, you're in the SIM world, or you're in the managed security services platform world. These are the 5 things that we're going to evaluate you all by, or it's like, hey, okay, you're really kind of a niche product. We're going to do against these 3 or 4 things. I mean, how does that look for, I guess this goes back to what are the companies expecting when they reach out to y'all?
Okay, so let's be clear. Let's separate this into 2 major buckets. There is vendor reaches out to the analysts for something, and
Right.
there is analysts reach out to vendors for something. When we write comparative research, analysts are reaching out to vendors and saying, I'm simplifying the process. We want to compare you with other vendors in this space. Here are the criteria that we are going to use. Do you want to participate in this research? Yes or no? That is one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is the vendor reaches out to the analyst. Look, we have this wonderful new thing, right? We want to show it to you. Again, time permitting, I'll say yes. I'll listen to what they said. I'll say thank you at the end of the call. And if I think that it is, I'll think about it. And is this something that I would want my readership to know? I'll write about it and post on our fact check and post on our portal for our subscribers. Done, right? So there is a I'm simplifying the process a little bit, but that's it. It's about, and one more thing. If the vendor wants to come to the analyst to say, oh, look, we have we're bringing this new product to market, and we want your opinion about this, right? That might be the case where if they are a subscriber, they might use some inquiry time and say, oh, look, we're bringing this to, like, I've fielded quite a few calls about the AI firewalls that we now have, right? Everybody added detecting GPT usage and so on, right? I had those calls before, right? What do you think about this? And I gave people's opinions. For some clients who have subscriptions, right? Well, they treated as an inquiry. If you don't have a subscription, fine, you can hire us as a consulting organization to do that. But we are not going to hire us as a consulting organization for strategic consulting on product fit and then expect us to write about that for our subscribers. That's the consult side of the business.
Right.
Does that help? Sorry.
No, that makes complete sense. We had a question from one of the people in our chat room, Super, who we mentioned earlier. It says, in the world of LLMs, and I'm assuming he's speaking like LLM is a thing now, a huge thing with a lot of things. How do we know Super, tell me if I'm wrong here. Yeah, what I think he's trying to get across here is, in the world of LLMs, how are we making sure that vendors or analysts are not, using pretty words from LLMs to kind of move things along? Are the words that are being written on your page from you, or are they written directly from are like, hey, tell me how to write about SIMs, and it's like, here's how to write about SIMs, and this is that. How are we getting accountability, saying that an analyst is actually writing this and it's not somebody who is cribbing off an LLM?
We have from our own editorial team have laid down policy that we shall not use LLMs to write content. Period. Right. So we are writing. Am I personally using LLMs? Oh, absolutely yes. Right. Am I using those LLMs as a sanity check on a particular area? Oh God, yes. It's really depending on the area. They are quite useful, right? Am I using them to write content? Absolutely not, right? That's
Okay.
and that brings up an interesting thing. We fully expect, as other creative pursuits, we fully expect LLMs and Gen AI to have an impact on the future of what we're doing, right? So analysts, to be an analyst, you need three things, right? You need, my perspective, you need to have some level of domain knowledge of the domain you're covering, right? You need to be able to communicate well, present company notwithstanding, right? And you need to be able to understand business, right? In my view, the LLM side of the equation affects very much the communication side, right? But it doesn't affect the others. So will there still be analysts when general intelligence takes over? I think so, because again, we're helping. We're information brokers. We're helping people understand each other. We talked about the origin story. I had a note here I forgot to mention. I'm an 80s kid, right? I'm in my early 50s. So who here remembers Highlander?
The movies or the TV show?
The movie. The movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you remember the movie? What was the prize? Do you remember what the prize was?
All the power?
Right. It was to be the last one, to be the last Highlander, right?
Well, yeah. There
can be only one.
There can be only one, yes. And I lived in England in the early 80s, so I'm deeply influenced by British rock from the early 80s. So the Queen soundtrack is awesome, right? But the prize in Highlander, at the end there, he's sitting down with the woman he partnered with, and then he's saying, "Oh, so what is it like?" And it's like, "Oh, I can hear how people are talking, diplomats, politicians, and leaders, and I can help them understand each other." Right? That was the line stuck with me, of course. That drives a lot of, at least my personal interest in being an analyst, helping people understand each other, right? As a buyer, how can I help you make better buying decisions? As a vendor, how can I help you reach your buyers better and help your buyers? I don't want to make this just for you to, I don't want you to scam buyers, right? It's not that, right? How do I help you help your buyers? So origin story here, very much driven by Highlander. Sorry.
Very nice. Very nice. So I've updated our question here. I asked the question, what's the shelf life of an analyst's comparative report? So when you go out and you run, against the Fortune 10s of the tech world, Microsoft, Google's, or whatever, let's say you're making that. And, 5 years from now, somebody from, some sales organization pulls up this report. Hey, we're in the Gartner upper quadrant. And I look at the date and it's like 5 years old. I'm like, is that still legitimate? What's the shelf life on this thing? Is it like 6 months, 3 months, 2 years?
It varies. So let's talk about those reports for a second, right? Because I think it's an important area. Those reports usually cover, again, as I said, two dimensions. There's a technical dimension, there is a business dimension, right? The business dimension is usually how well is the company doing as a business, right? What level of assurance, or what indication can you have that if you choose to buy this company, the company is going to be around 6 months from now, right? So that's one dimension, right? And frankly, the business success is not perfect, but it's also an indication of, listen, more people are choosing this, right? Just because the product is being deployed, right? It's doing some of what it's supposed to do. And then the technical dimension is, okay, how are they solving this particular problem, right? Are they a leader in? Are they thinking about this problem differently? I'm policing myself not to use the terms that exist in all those quadrants, because I don't want to imply anything. So I would, the very direct answer to your question is that shelf life, the shelf life for a comparative report for us, at, we refresh them every 2 years, right? That's
Okay.
some firms may refresh them every year if they have the time. I wish I could refresh them every month, but no, it doesn't happen, right? So the comparative reports that I write, I usually refresh them every 2 years, right? And
Okay.
even I would say this, even the reports that are not comparative, right? Because I talked about the I talked about reports that are comparative. That's the one we focused a lot on. I talked a little bit about vendor profiles, right? We'll write a profile about the vendor. There's other trends reports, right? Hey, here are the trends we're seeing happen in the market, right? We write a trends report every year, right? So my trends for 25 report is it's percolating on my mind right now, right? So it'll be published in sometime in September, right? And come September next year, there will be a trends for 26 report, right? So some reports are a year, some reports are 2 years. I would argue that even the vendor profiles, they may be refreshed. Like if somebody's bringing you, I'll put myself in the shoes of a buyer. If somebody's coming to me with a report that is more than 2 years old, right? Unless it's something foundational about the market, right? I would look at this. Yeah. So I wrote a report back in when was it? Sorry, I want to say October, November of 22, maybe December, about SASE, right? I just reread that paper for like, am I going to refresh that paper in December of this year? Probably not, because some of the same things it pretty much still holds, right? But next year I have a comparative report on. I'll probably refresh a comparative report I have on SASE because things have changed since then. So the foundations didn't change, but the specifics of the vendor changed. Look at me. I can take a simple question and I can make it into a 5-hour thing. I'm sorry.
That I appreciate that. Ms. Berlin, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to know, how do I, as a product person, find somebody that's as passionate about SASE as you are as about something I care about?
So okay, so I did not pay her to ask that, right? One thing we haven't talked about yet, and I know we're almost at time, is that we haven't talked about analyst relations, right? So analyst relations is a function usually within vendors, right, that specializes in interacting with analysts, right? So what if you are a very large, if you are a very, I'll do the large company first, right? A large company will have an analyst relations department with 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people. Some of the large vendors have 20 people in their analyst relations department, and those people, analyst relations, they are professionals, very good at what they do, of facilitating the conversation between analysts and the vendor, right? So what they will do is that, listen, you are a product person. You go to your analyst relations person and say, who is following our space? The analyst relations person who works for your company will know that here are the analysts that are covering your space, right? And they will reach out to the analyst. Hey, listen, I'm analyst relations for company X. Do you want to? We want to brief you about something. Do you want to have the conversation? Right. So that's one part of the conversation. The other is the analyst relations person is the point of contact for the analysts as well. If I want to reach a vendor, I will hopefully know who if it's a vendor in the sector I cover, right? Over time I've developed that. I know who the analyst relations person is, and I'll reach out. Hey, can I get an updated briefing on what you're doing? It's been a while since we talked, and so on and so forth. So analyst relations plays this communications role between analysts and vendors. what if you are too small to have, you don't need a full-time analyst person, right? Oh my God, no. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
like what if that's one of the 30 jobs that I do?
well, that's where, I suspect you might, right? And this is where there are plenty, just like you outsource PR, right? There's a PR agency that vendor may work with. A lot of PR agencies have AR capabilities as well, just a matter of contracting with them. So your PR agency may do that. There are independent AR firms that the only thing they do is that they are analyst relations for multiple vendors with multiple analysts. And we were talking earlier about links. I don't have many links to share, I'm sorry. The one I would mention is that there is something called the IIAR, the Institute for Industry Analyst Relations, or something like that. If you Google IIAR, the first one is about ammonia. It's not that one, right? It's the next one, right? But this is the professional organization for analyst relations people, right? And so if you're in the audience and you're listening to this and you're trying to figure out how do I engage with the analyst, if I have one piece of advice is work with an analyst relations professional, whether you do it, whether it's a full-time person in your company or a part-time person, independent. There are quite a few independent analyst relations people, like the freelancers, right? Or whether you work through an agency, an analyst relation person can help you figure out analysts, right? And they'll tell you, oh, Fernando, oh no, don't bother speaking with him. He just likes to talk. He doesn't, right? Or, oh no, you want to reach those people, and they'll help you. Oh, look, when you go talk to Fernando, know that he hates the adjectives, right? So don't, like, do you know what I mean? They'll know how to engage with the analyst. Right? Sorry,
Okay.
I just make long-winded comments.
No, it's all good. Analystrelations.org is the site. Weird enough, and you're right. IIAR is not the first one that's comes up on Google. Is not the right one. It's the one right
something about
underneath
ammonia,
so,
I think. Right?
Yeah.
Industry ammonia.
Yeah. It's,
you could argue
refrigeration.
There's something there.
Well, it mentioned a technical organization, industry representation in all facets of natural. I was like, oh, industry representation. No, okay, natural refrigeration community. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I've added a couple of links in here talking about reducing bias and comparative effective research.
Thank you. I'll take a look.
Asymmetric information, that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Let me see, what is it? Gonna have to give me a little bit more there, schmooze on that question. But yeah, so one thing. So I want to talk about this story before we go. But it was something we talked about just before I hit start on the stream. You are a fan of martial arts. And you had said that being a martial artist helps you be an analyst, and so I thought we might let you talk about why, how those things converge like that, and how does that help you be a better analyst?
So if my family is watching this, they'll be horrified at me. But I'm going to take off the blurring. Show how bad my office is. Right, this is my office. Right.
Okay.
It came at a time, like I set this up at a time when I had a laptop that couldn't blur, and I put up this. It's a mess, of course, but I put up this because it's a good window into my soul as an analyst, if you will. You have a few kids' drawings up there, right? I love my family. Right? You have a compendium of data visualizations. I am not a data scientist. I do not play one on TV, but I am familiar with machine learning and AI and data science and so on. So when you come to me and you tell me that, oh, look, we're going to AI all the things, I'll try very hard to hold back the eye roll, but I may not be able to, right? So there's that. I have my sticker wall. I don't do stickers on my laptop. I don't want to do any sort of implicit endorsement of anybody. And I don't want to lose my stickers that I like. So what I do is I put them on a wall, and I'll usually only do like conferences or podcasts. I don't do like vendor stickers. Very, very rare, right? Behind me, you have a thing I got from my family. Relax. There's a spreadsheet for that. Again, the data science stuff. There's a cognitive bias compendium, which is about, we talked about economics a little bit. I think it's a very important thing. There's Grogu, because, of course, this was Grogu before he was named Grogu. He was still called the child back. And then you have my martial arts belt, right? And the martial arts story is that I used to practice Shotokan karate. I don't anymore. Like, sadly, my knee and I have words. But I put this up because I say, hey, it's relevant to my work as an analyst. And they say, no, we're not going to get into a fight, God forbid now. But in martial arts, there's that saying that you sweat in the gym so you don't bleed in battle, or you don't bleed in the ring, right? So about the value of practice and preparation. And I find it relevant to the analyst work, because if you're a vendor, if you're working with an analyst, right, the analyst can be, in a sense, your sparring partner, for lack of a better term, for message testing. Hey, listen, we have this new message that's going out to clients or to prospects. What do you think, right? And so that's the martial arts connection. It's about preparing and being ready for interacting with people. I'll go back to the blurring, because if I forget, this is ugly. But this is my background. But yes, it's a really interesting role, and I hope that this helps answer a few questions. I'm more than happy to engage, and I think it's a really interesting role. I think it can be really helpful. I don't want people to overthink what it does, right? It's not the be all and end all. It's one more perspective to help you, whoever you are, with decision making. Right? And I've had conversations with people. Oh, why the X vendor is really good and they are not on any particular comparative? Maybe they chose not to be. They didn't want to participate. Maybe they are really good from a technical perspective, but they don't have the business impact that we wanted to consider for the research, right? Could be multiple reasons, and very clearly, I would never select a vendor just because they sit in a particular position in a quadrant or wave or universe or whatever. It's a really good indication of that vendor, but it's just a signal. It's just like certification. It's just a signal, right? You still have to go through the process of figuring it out.
Yep. So I actually have one or two more questions here.
Please, of course.
Yeah, we didn't have any kind of, I just said 6:30 to 8 Pacific because, that was, normally we set aside about 90 minutes or what have you. But I'm really, so with hiring being the way it is in our industry right now, what does it take to be an analyst? Can I be an analyst? Can Ms. Berlin be an analyst? Can Mr. Betcher be an analyst?
Yes. So I'd say that I mentioned that there are three major things I think are important for people being analysts. You need domain knowledge, you need communication skills, and you need some level of business, quote unquote, savvy, right? There are two major, analysts come in all shapes and sizes, right? There are two major career paths for becoming an analyst, right? Number one is, and the most common is, you've been at this for a while, right? And this is why I say that any one of you could very easily say, you know what, I know this industry, I know how to communicate, I understand how this works. I'm going to apply to be an analyst, kind of thing, right? That's perfectly fine. Or you've been a security operator or an executive for a long time, and you know what, I want to talk about these broader strategic things. I can apply, right? So that's one career path. The other career path is kind of quote unquote the opposite, which is, oh, look, I am going to be I'm very early in my career. I just came out of business school or whatnot, and I can write really well. I'm going to start as an analyst, or I'm going to be, and I'm going to pick up the domain along the way, right? Is it the same thing as having done it for? If you've had the domain knowledge for a long time, you can that's great, but perhaps it's something you pick up along the way. And there are plenty of excellent analysts who've picked up along the way. Journalists make excellent analysts as well, right? They know how to write. They know how to write under pressure, right? And they understand the domain. There's quite a few journalists I interact with that I wish I could shake them and say, listen, you would be a perfect as an analyst. Why don't you want to do this, right? But then what's what's the downside, right? You can probably find higher pay in other areas of tech, right? I'll leave it at that. You do get to travel a little bit, which for some people is great. For others, yeah, not so much. And one of my greatest regrets, and sorry, personal thing I'll share with your audience, is I once missed a kid's birthday because of analyst things I didn't know at the time. Right now I do, and now I have very clearly. I shall not miss those things. And the other thing is, there's a quote. I don't remember the entire quote. Do you remember, the quote about the man in the arena by, I think, Teddy Roosevelt, right? Search man in the arena. It's a few lines, right? And it begins with, it's not the critic who counts, right? Sorry for the sexism. It's the man in the arena who's out there, who's sweating, who's trying and failing and going, right? It's very easy for the critic, right? So if you are somebody who has a bit of a builder mindset on you, an analyst might not be the right kind of role, right? Because we are ultimately information brokers. Like, I'm not building a new product. I'm not developing a new market for a company. You know what I mean? So,
right.
But to answer, but I wanted to say that the downside as well as the upside.
No, that's great. I appreciate that. I did post the Theodore Roosevelt quote. It was, in fact, TDR who said it. Yeah, and it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. And it goes upon, but that's a good one. The Goodreads is actually in our show notes as well. So.
It's amazing that people used to talk like that.
Yeah, talk all like fancy and stuff.
Sexism aside, right? Because women and others have as much, they've struggled just as much, but it's a great quote, right? It's so at the end of the day, I'm doing the best by my subscribers and stakeholders and passing information along, but credit goes to them who create companies, who deploy products, who run podcasts and videocasts and so on. So I'm just trying to help information flow from one side to another.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I'll just stick to streaming. Apparently, I'm not good at any of those three things, so I'm just going to go ahead and stick it. I'm just going to be a streamer, so I'll just stay there. So, Mr. Betcher, do you have anything else before we go?
Nothing else.
Okay, Ms. Berlin, how about you?
No, I just went into like a Brene Brown, Theodore Roosevelt rabbit hole now, though.
I'm sorry, what? Brene Brown?
Yeah. One of the links that I clicked on says that quote inspired her to write one of her books.
Oh, that's really cool.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. All right, right on. Last call from our chat. Go ahead.
No, I didn't have any. I have a million questions, but I'd probably be charged at some point.
Well, that brings us to our last question.
Questions
from the bottom of my heart. I'm here to help the community, right? And again, help people understand how this role works, because it can be helpful. it can, there might be times when working with an analyst doesn't make any sense, right? I'm here to help you. So how can I help you?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
I will, yeah, it's non-podcast related things, but coming in, like I just came into this product role, what, like 2 months ago, maybe? So like learning about all of this stuff is super, super helpful.
So yeah, okay. So recommendations then. There is there are two things I want to mention. First, there's a guy. His name is Richard Steenan. Some of you may know him. Steennon. Steenan. He's a former Gartner analyst. He's an independent now, and he wrote two books that were really interesting. One of them is called Up and to the Right, right? And it's about how marketing should engage with analysts, right? I read that before I became an analyst, and it was really, really helpful, right? So Richard Steenan's book is one. And Richard also wrote a second book called Curmudgeon, which is how to be an analyst. Now, Curmudgeon came out after I was already an analyst, so I read through it, I liked it, but it's not exactly what my day is like, but again, it's a good read. So if you've been in a product role, if you joined a product role recently, Up and to the Right might be worth your time. It's a short book, right? It's a good read. The other thing is Ross Haleliuk. Not sure if you're familiar.
Oh yeah.
Ross.
Yeah, I know.
Cyber for Builders is a really nice book. I helped a little bit on there's a quote from me about analysts on the analyst chapter, but his book overall is really nice. So again, yeah, the analysts and endorsements are like, I'm always sensitive about this, right? But I really helped doing this on a personal thing. I really I love the work that Ross does, and I was honored to be able to help him a little bit on the book. But I'd suggest that as well.
Awesome.
And reach out if you have questions.
Yeah. So last question: How would people reach out if they wanted to? They might ask a question. You'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Let's maybe talk, in a more formal sense or something." But if somebody had a question about, being an analyst, or a question about how they would engage an analyst. Digital Word asks, Mr. Montenegro mentioned his subscribers. Does he stream on any platforms?
I do not stream after I spend so much time chatting and saying sorry every other second word. So I'm not built for streaming, I guess. But so I do not. Sometimes we do have video snippets of something. It'll usually end up on LinkedIn in some way, shape, or form. So best way to reach out is usually LinkedIn. I'm still processing the how Twitter transformed itself, so it's still a little bit of a thing. So I love Mastodon. So on the InfoSec Exchange Mastodon server, you can find me there, right? And yeah. So but basically LinkedIn is probably best.
Can I post your LinkedIn on the Twitch chat?
Sure, of course.
Okay. All right. And YouTube chat. There you go. Are you FS Montenegro at infosec.exchange as well?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So FS Montenegro, they're on LinkedIn. FS Montenegro on infosec.exchange. I do believe you're also still on Twitter as well.
Yeah, zero OPSEC. Right?
Zero OPSEC. Zero.
FS Montenegro. FS, the only place I don't think it's FS Montenegro is on Instagram/threads, where it's F_S_Montenegro, because for some reason FS Montenegro is taken. Right.
Oh man.
Yeah,
dang it.
But listen, thank you very much for this. This was fun. I hope it was helpful.
Sure. Fantastic. Yeah. The other thing I want to say is, so the QR code that you've been seeing on the stream here goes to Miss Berlin's book, which just dropped literally in the last few days. You could get it for pre-order, but it's now open and on sale. And the other thing is, I want to congratulate Amanda on her promotion at work. If you didn't see it on LinkedIn, she has been promoted to Director of Intrusion Detection Engineering.
Incident detection engineering.
Incident. God damn it. I did it again.
I don't know that it matters, but yeah.
The director part is the most important bit.
Right.
Well, the
Yeah,
dollar
so-
amount associated with that
Right.
is the
Exactly.
most important.
Exactly.
And all the
That's-
extra
yeah.
work that comes along with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations.
But congratulations, well-deserved promotion there, and yeah, they're better off having you where you're at right now as a director, I think. And you know, that glass ceiling, we're just going to pop right through that mother. And
Going strong.
You're going to be right there. Yeah, you're going to get it. So. Very cool. Ms. Berlin, how would people find you if they wanted to talk about your new promotion or what have you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn for sure. And then I will be at Blue Team Con, Wild West Hacking Fest, and GurCon for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, those three
cool.
for sure.
All right. Mr.
Unless
Betcher.
something cataclysmic, yeah. Unless something really bad happens, and then I can't go. But
okay. Unless the incident part in your new title actually happens or something.
Right.
Mr. Betcher, how would people find you online? And are you going to be at any conferences soon?
Not that I'm aware of, but hey, they could just go through you, right?
They could, yeah. But
no,
they want to see you more than me. They want to see you more than me.
At Betcherpwned on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm not too much into social media, but yeah, if you really want to get a hold to me, I'm sure there are ways.
Okay. All right. You can find me on Twitter at Brian Break. I'm on Reddit at BreakB. I don't always look at the security stuff all the time. I'm pretty much on Pokemon Go. Am I the asshole? Cybersecurity one. Actually, that's where we found the gentleman Jeff, who we've been working with on setting up a malware sandbox. So found a lot of good information on various different Reddits, and I'm actually on the Friends Reddit too. Don't shame me. I have encyclopedic knowledge about Friends, the TV show. So, but anyway, I'm glad you're able to join us, Fernando. I want you to come back if we would love to talk with you about some more of the subtle nuances of analyst work. And yeah, it'd be great to have you back on again.
Happy to. If people can, we talk LinkedIn. I'll be over at summer camp as well. So
right, DEF CON, yes. Yeah, that's about less than a month away. Less than a month.
Oh, I know. I'm looking forward to that. I'm noticing Ms. Berlin's shirt.
This is my favorite shirt because this was the third year in a row that Black Hat spelled the word liaison wrong.
Look, we're hackers. We're not speller stuns or whatever.
You know how many people this probably had to go through for that to be missed?
Oh my God. Look, we're hackers. We're not.
It doesn't have my handle on the back, and it's really
something.
old. And this is like a ratty T-shirt, but I still love it.
Fantastic. All right. Well, anyway, thank you everybody for coming on. Digital Warhead, Super Lolly, everyone else who joined, Bill and Schmooze and all the other folks, Age of Music. Thank you for letting me know about sound issues. Thank you for that. It didn't go an hour and a half, and somebody didn't say anything, so I appreciate that. Ilsha 4314, thank you again. Thank you for coming. And that was it for our show. I'll be back on Tuesday. I'll probably still be setting up some malware detection stuff. Thank you again, Fernando. And thanks to everybody who came on. This is Bringing Down Security. Take care of yourselves, as we're fond of saying around here, because you're the only you have. And we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.